The night Ryan told me we were taking a break, he said it like he was updating me about a dinner reservation. No hesitation, no apology, no sign that he understood a sentence like that could split a life open. I told everyone we're taking a break, he said. That was it. That was how almost 4 years together got reduced to a single, casual announcement. My name is Elena Whitmore. I was 35 years old when I learned that some endings do not begin with screaming or obvious betrayal. Sometimes they begin with a man standing in your kitchen, scrolling through his phone, calmly informing you that he has already rewritten the story of your relationship in rooms you have not even entered. Ryan Mercer was 32. He was my boyfriend. We had been together nearly 4 years and living together for 2, long enough to build routines that felt permanent, long enough to know which version of each other belonged to mornings, bad days, family obligations, rent deadlines, anniversaries, and silence. Long enough that he should have known better. I remember blinking at him once, not because I was confused exactly, because the words had landed and I needed 1 second to accept that he had truly said them in that order. Not, we need to talk. Not, I've been thinking. Not even, I need some space. Just, I told everyone we were taking a break. I stared at him across the kitchen counter. The overhead light was too bright. There was a glass of water near my hand I had poured 10 minutes earlier and forgotten to drink. Outside, rain tapped against the window in a steady rhythm that made everything inside feel even more unreal. Oh, I said. That was my first response. Just oh. Ryan finally glanced up from his phone, mildly annoyed, in that dismissive way he got when people failed to follow the emotional script he had already written in his head. Don't be dramatic, he said. It's not a breakup. The pain arrived in layers. First the insult, then the confusion, then the deeper sting beneath both of them. It wasn't only that he wanted a break. It was that he had already announced it, already told people, already allowed the world to begin adjusting to a version of our relationship that I had not even been consulted on. I looked past him into the living room, the sofa with the blanket we had argued over in the store because he wanted charcoal and I wanted cream, the framed photo from a trip 2 summers earlier, both of us smiling into harsh sunlight, his running shoes by the front door, my book on the armrest. The ordinary evidence of a shared life was still sitting there unchanged, while he stood in front of me, acting like the foundation under it had not just been quietly cracked. I just needed space, he said, and I didn't want people asking questions. People. That was the word that stayed with me. Not us, not me. People. As if acquaintances and cousins and whoever else he had chosen to update mattered more than the woman standing in front of him. So you announced it? I asked. He shrugged. Yeah, I told them we're on a break. It's easier that way. Easier. There are moments when someone reveals the shape of their selfishness so clearly that your hurt has to step aside for a second just to admire the nerve. You're fine with it, right? He added. That might have been the cruelest part. Not because he was asking permission. Because he was pretending to ask after the decision had already been made. I could have argued. I could have demanded names. Asked whether his mother knew before I did. Asked whether his friends had already started treating me like some burdensome girlfriend he needed distance from. Instead, I just nodded. Okay. That threw him. His eyebrows pulled together. Okay? Okay, I repeated. Thanks for telling me. His expression shifted then slightly. Not relief, not guilt, something more uncertain, like he had prepared for tears or anger or a fight dramatic enough to justify his need for space. What he had not prepared for was calm. You're being weird, he said. Maybe. He kept looking at me as if he were waiting for the real reaction to begin. It didn't. Not then. Because something had already started changing inside me, and it was happening too quietly for him to notice. He went back to his phone. That hurt more than I expected. Not because it was shocking. Because it was so casual. He had said the thing. Therefore the thing was settled. He moved around the apartment like nothing had shifted, opened the fridge, took out sparkling water, asked if I wanted one, sat on the couch a few minutes later and started half watching something on his phone, while I remained in the kitchen with my hand still near that untouched glass of water. I remember thinking very clearly that he believed I would remain exactly where he had placed me. That was the hidden rule beneath the whole conversation. He wanted distance without loss. The emotional flexibility of being almost single, with the structural comfort of knowing I would still be there, still reachable, still holding the shape of us intact until he decided what came next. And the worst part was not that he wanted it. The worst part was that he assumed I would accept it. That night we performed normal. He asked if I wanted takeout. I said no. He asked if I was mad. I said, I'm thinking. That made him uneasy, though he tried not to show it. Later in the bathroom, I stood beside him brushing my teeth while our reflections stared back from the mirror. We looked like a couple. Familiar, domestic, almost boring in the safest possible way. If a stranger had seen us then, they would have assumed nothing was wrong. "This doesn't have to be a big thing, Elena," he said, his tone careful now. I looked at him through the mirror. He wasn't cruel in the loud way. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't mocking me. He was doing something more subtle and, in its own way, more damaging. He was trying to manage the size of my pain, so it would remain convenient for him. "It already is," I said. He frowned, but he didn't push. Maybe because he thought time would smooth me out. Maybe because he thought I would cry later, then calm down, then adjust. Maybe because he had confused my silence with obedience. We got into bed without touching. That was new. Not dramatic, just exact. A careful strip of distance between our bodies where warmth used to live. I lay awake for a long time, listening to his breathing settle into sleep, while my mind kept circling the same sentence. He told everyone before he told me. That was the wound inside the wound. Not just uncertainty, humiliation. The realization that somewhere out there, our relationship had already become a topic, an update, a reframed story, and I had been the last person invited to know. Around midnight, I got out of bed and walked into the living room. The apartment was dark except for the pale city glow slipping through the windows. The framed photo on the shelf caught a strip of light. His jacket hung over the dining chair. My mug was still in the sink. Everything looked so normal that for a second I felt almost dizzy. Then the clarity came. Not loud, not cinematic, just clean. If Ryan wanted a break badly enough to announce it to everyone else before he spoke to me, then I would take him at his word. Literally. I picked up my phone and opened my profile settings. I stared at the screen for a moment, not because I was uncertain, but because I understood exactly what I was doing. No dramatic caption, no vague quote, no late-night declaration, just accurate information. I changed my relationship status to single. Then I removed a few photos. Not every memory, just the obvious ones. The anniversary dinner, the rooftop selfie, the weekend trip where he had his arm around my waist and looked at me like I was home. I wasn't erasing the relationship. I was updating reality. By the time I put my phone down, the hurt had changed shape. It was still there, but now it had edges, direction. I stood in the dark living room and thought about all the practical things I would have to untangle next. Shared subscriptions, lease details, emergency contacts, the calendar, the small logistical roots people grow into each other's lives when they believe they are building something stable. Not an angry list, a necessary one, because the truth had already become impossible to ignore. Ryan thought silence meant agreement. He thought my calm meant cooperation. He thought, "We're on a break," was a sentence he could issue, and I would obediently live inside until he decided what came next. What he did not understand was that the moment he told the world I was optional, something in me stopped waiting to be chosen. I went back to bed after 1 a.m. He never stirred. The distance between us was still there, cool and exact. Only now it belonged to me too. By morning, I already knew that if Ryan wanted a break, I was going to make sure it was real. Ryan slept well that night. I know because sometime around 6 a.m, I woke to the soft vibration of his alarm and the sound of him stretching beside me like nothing in the world had shifted. The same quiet apartment. The same man who, 12 hours earlier, had calmly informed me that our relationship had already been placed on pause for public viewing. He rolled toward me, blinking sleep out of his eyes. "Morning," he murmured. His voice was warm in that automatic way people sound when they believe everything is still fundamentally safe. "Morning," I said. For a second, he studied my face, probably looking for evidence of tears, or anger, or some fragile, wounded expression people carry the morning after a fight. He didn't find it. Instead, he found the same calm he had left behind the night before. That seemed to relax him. "See?" he said lightly, pushing himself up onto one elbow. "It's not a big deal." I didn't answer. He leaned over and kissed my cheek, quick and casual. The familiarity of the gesture made something twist inside my chest, but I kept my expression neutral. Then he swung his legs off the bed and stood. "I'm probably going to stay at my mom's for a few nights," he said while pulling on a t-shirt. "You know, give things a little space." Space. He said it like it was a health routine. "Of course," I said. The words came out calm, polite, cooperative, exactly the way he expected. Ryan smiled like that confirmed something. Like he had just won a quiet argument that had never technically happened. "Thanks for being cool about this," he said. Then he walked into the kitchen, started the coffee maker, and scrolled through his phone while it brewed. 10 minutes later, he was tying his shoes near the door. Before leaving, he paused long enough to give me another quick kiss on the cheek. I'll text you later, he said. Then he left. The door clicked shut. And just like that, the version of our relationship he had announced to the world officially began. I stood in the kitchen for a full minute after he was gone, listening to the quiet of the apartment settle around me. The coffee machine clicked. A car passed outside. Somewhere in the hallway, a neighbor shut their door. Ordinary sounds. But inside my chest, something felt strangely different. Not shattered. Rearranged. I poured myself coffee and sat down at the table with my phone. The first message arrived before I finished half the cup. Cousin Daniel? Hey, heard you and Ryan are taking a break. You okay? I stared at the screen. So it was true. He really had told people. Within the next hour, 2 more messages came. Maya, just checking in. If you need to talk, I'm here. Chris. Hey, Elena, just heard about you and Ryan. Sorry, hope you're okay. I didn't correct anyone. I didn't explain. I simply replied with the same sentence every time. I'm okay, because oddly enough, I was. Not happy, not relieved, but steady. The hurt was still there, but something stronger had settled underneath it overnight. Clarity. By noon, the messages slowed down, which meant the news had already made its way through whatever invisible network Ryan had activated the night before. I pictured the conversations happening in different places. Ryan at a bar telling a friend, yeah, we're just taking a break. His mother sighing sympathetically. Someone nodding and saying, maybe a little space is good. Meanwhile, the woman actually inside the relationship had been the last person informed. That detail kept repeating in my head. Not angrily, just factually. After finishing my coffee, I opened the Notes app on my phone and typed a single word at the top. List. Under it, I started writing. Shared streaming accounts. Lease addendum. Electric bill. Gym membership. Emergency contacts. Cat food subscription. The boring architecture of adult life. It turns out relationships aren't only built on love. They're built on logistics. And when someone casually announces a break, those logistics are the first things that start shifting under your feet. Around 2 in the afternoon, my phone buzzed again. Ryan, everything okay? You've been quiet. I read the message twice. Then I typed back exactly what he had asked for. Just giving you the break you wanted. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. He didn't answer. That evening, I went for a run along the river path near the apartment. The sky was clear after the rain, the air sharp and cool. People passed me in clusters. Couples walking dogs, friends jogging side by side, someone pushing a stroller. Life continuing in that calm, indifferent way it always does when yours quietly changes shape. When I finished the run, I took a photo. Nothing dramatic. Just the skyline reflecting in the water and my running shoes near the edge of the path. I posted it to my story without a caption. But anyone who clicked my profile would see one small, accurate detail. Relationship status, single. Ryan watched the story within 20 minutes. I know because his name appeared in the viewer list. He didn't message that night. The next day, he texted around noon. Hope you're doing okay. I'm good, I replied. A pause. Then he sent a photo of his niece at a playground. Look at this kid. She climbed the slide backwards. I studied the image. A toddler with messy curls and grass-stained knees, grinning triumphantly at the camera. For years, Ryan had sent me pictures like that. Small moments from his family life he liked sharing with me. And suddenly I understood what he was doing. He was still behaving as if we were adjacent. Not together. But not separate either. Like he could step outside the relationship publicly while keeping access to its comforts privately. There was still no conversation about rules. No timeline. No boundaries. Because those things would have required both of us agreeing the break was real. Ryan didn't want that. He wanted something looser. Something that gave him movement while assuming I would remain where he left me. That night he posted a story. A rooftop bar. City lights behind him. Music somewhere in the background. Ryan standing with friends, holding a drink, smiling at the camera like a man enjoying the lightness of new freedom. Someone tagged him. Fire emojis appeared in the comments. Get it, man. Single life looks good. I watched the story once. Then I closed the app, because while Ryan was testing how a break felt, I was finalizing what it meant. 2 days later, I booked movers. Not immediately. Not dramatically. For the following week. I packed a small overnight bag and asked a friend named Laura if I could crash on her couch for a little while. She didn't hesitate. Of course, she said. No questions. Sometimes the people who care about you don't interrogate your decisions. They simply hold the door open. Ryan texted again that night. Everything okay? You seem distant. I looked at the message and almost smiled. Distant. The word hung there between us like an accidental confession. I typed my response slowly. Just respecting the break. He didn't answer right away. But somewhere in the quiet distance between our phones, the first crack had already begun forming in the version of events he thought he controlled. By the 3rd day, Ryan was enjoying the break exactly the way he had imagined. At least, that's what it looked like from the outside. His stories showed rooftop bars, crowded patios, late dinners with friends. Someone tagged him at a concert. Someone else posted a blurry photo of him laughing in a group selfie with the caption, "Freedom looks good on you." I didn't react, didn't comment, didn't message. I watched one story once, then muted the rest. Because while he was experimenting with the feeling of being unattached, I was quietly finishing the administrative part of becoming exactly that. On Thursday morning, the movers arrived. Two men in gray shirts and work gloves who didn't care about the emotional context of their job. They asked practical questions. Which boxes? Fragile items? Where's the elevator? I appreciated that. Logistics don't require explanations. I started with the simple things. Clothes, books, my desk lamp. The frame certificate from work Ryan always joked made the apartment look like a law office. Then the guitar. That one made me pause. Ryan had complained about it more than once. Why does it take up so much space if you barely play it anymore? Now I slid it gently into its case and carried it to the door. By noon, half my life was stacked neatly near the entrance. The apartment looked strange without those pieces. Not empty, just altered. Like someone had quietly edited a photograph and removed one person from the frame. I didn't take everything. The couch stayed. The kitchen table. Most of the shared things that belonged to both of us. I wasn't trying to gut the apartment. I was just removing myself. Before leaving, I placed my keys on the counter. For a second, I stood there looking at them. Two small pieces of metal that used to represent belonging. Now they were simply objects. Then I walked out. That night, Ryan finally noticed something had changed. My phone buzzed around 8. Ryan, did you move stuff? Another message came seconds later. Where are you staying? I waited almost an hour before replying. Not to play games. I was unpacking a box of kitchen things in Laura's apartment. Just giving you space, I wrote back. 3 dots appeared immediately, then vanished, then appeared again. Finally, his message came through. This feels extreme. I stared at the word for a long time. Extreme. The irony almost made me laugh. Extreme was announcing a break to the world before informing the person inside the relationship. What I had done wasn't extreme. It was literal. He had said we were on a break. I had adjusted accordingly. A minute later, my phone rang. Ryan calling. I watched the screen until it stopped vibrating. Then he texted again. Elena? I didn't answer. That silence seemed to bother him more than anger ever would have. The next morning, I posted a small story. Just a photo of a coffee shop window near Laura's place. The caption read, "New routines." Nothing emotional. Nothing pointed. But if someone looked closely, they would see what it meant. Ryan watched that story too. Twice. Still, he didn't ask the real question. Instead, he asked smaller ones. When are you coming back? How long are you staying there? Questions that assumed the break had an expiration date. Questions built on this quiet belief that eventually I would return and everything would slide back into the same shape. I didn't correct him, because the truth was simple. The break had already done its job. It had shown me how easily he could step away from our relationship as long as I stayed put. And the moment I stopped doing that, the entire illusion began cracking. Ryan just didn't see it yet. Friday night was when the confusion turned sharp. My phone rang just after 10. His name lit up the screen again. This time I answered. Why did my mom ask if we're done? He said immediately. No greeting. Just tension. I leaned against the window in Laura's living room and looked down at the streetlights below. You told everyone we're on a break, I said calmly. I didn't say we broke up. You didn't say how long the break was. That's implied, he snapped. Is it? Silence. Then frustration crept into his voice. You're acting like we broke up. You told people we weren't together, I replied. That's not the same thing. Then what is it? Another pause. Longer this time. It's a break, he said finally. Couples do that all the time. Do they tell everyone first? He exhaled sharply. You're making this bigger than it is. No, I said quietly. You did that when you announced it. The silence stretched. Then his tone shifted. You don't get to decide this is permanent. That sentence revealed everything. Control. He thought he still had it. You decided it without me, I said. That's not fair. I didn't say it was. He muttered something under his breath. Then the frustration came out fully. You're punishing me for being honest. Honest. I let the words sit there for a moment. He hadn't lied. He had simply left out the part where my opinion mattered. You wanted space, I said. I'm giving it to you. That's not what I meant. Then you should have said something different. Another sharp breath. You're being stubborn. Maybe I was. But stubbornness sometimes looks a lot like self-respect when people are used to you bending. Before he could say anything else, I asked a question that had been forming quietly in my mind. Did you expect me to wait? Silence. Long enough to answer. Finally, he scoffed. So what, you're just done? I listened to you, I said. You didn't fight. Fight for a relationship he had already stepped outside of publicly? No. I hadn't. He hung up after that. Not angrily, just abruptly, like someone who realized the conversation wasn't going the way he expected. An hour later, a mutual friend sent me a screenshot. Ryan had posted something new, a photo at a concert with friends. Bright lights, crowd behind him. The caption read, "Sometimes space shows you what really matters." I stared at it for a second. Then I closed the app, because the truth was becoming clearer by the day. Ryan thought the break belonged to him. But the moment he told the world we weren't together, someone eventually had to believe him. That someone had turned out to be me. By the beginning of the second week, something shifted. Not loudly. Just a quiet pattern appearing in places Ryan probably assumed I would never notice. It started with Laura. She was sitting across from me on the couch one evening, scrolling through her phone while I unpacked another box of books. Then she stopped scrolling. "Hey," she said carefully. I looked up. "You know I'm on your side, right?" "That sounds like bad news." She turned the phone toward me. "I don't know if it's bad news," she said, "but it might be useful." On the screen was a tagged photo from a restaurant downtown. 3 people at a table. 2 men, 1 woman. The men were laughing. The woman was smiling politely. But my eyes had already locked on the person across from her. Ryan. The caption read, "Unexpected reunion tonight." And the woman beside him, was someone I recognized. Marissa, Ryan's ex-girlfriend. The one he had dated years before we met. The one he once described as a closed chapter. I leaned back slowly. Not shocked, just understanding. Laura studied my face. "You think this is new?" she asked. I looked at the photo again. Ryan leaning back in his chair. Relaxed. Too relaxed. "No," I said quietly. "I think it started earlier." Laura frowned. "You think the break is connected?" I replayed the last 2 weeks in my head. Ryan telling everyone we were on a break. Ryan suddenly living like a single man. Ryan insisting it wasn't a breakup. Ryan getting irritated the moment I acted like it was. And now dinner with the woman he once claimed was firmly in the past. The realization didn't land like a knife. It landed like a puzzle piece. Clean. Logical. Ryan hadn't stepped away to think. He had stepped away to explore. Freedom without consequences. Options without risk. The safety of knowing I was still there while he tested the past. Laura leaned forward. "You okay?" "Yeah. You deserve better than being someone's backup plan." Backup plan. The words hung in the room. I thought about the night Ryan stood in our kitchen and casually informed me our relationship had already been placed on pause for public viewing. And suddenly everything looked simpler than before. He hadn't wanted space. He had wanted options. That night Ryan texted me again. "How's the new place?" No mention of dinner. No mention of Marissa. Just the same neutral tone he had been using since everything began. "It's good," I replied. A minute later, another message appeared. "We should probably talk soon." Probably. The word made me smile slightly. Now he wanted conversation. Now that the situation had drifted beyond his control. "About what?" I asked. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Finally, he wrote, "About us." I stared at the message. Then I thought about the restaurant photo again. Ryan, Marissa, unexpected reunion. "Are you seeing her?" I typed. The reply didn't come immediately. 30 seconds passed. Then a minute. Finally, his answer appeared. "Seeing who?" I almost laughed. Not because the lie was convincing. Because it was predictable. "Marissa," I wrote. The typing bubble appeared. Stopped. Appeared again. Then his answer came through. We ran into each other. Of course. People always run into each other in carefully lit restaurants with mutual friends and celebratory captions. "Right," I replied. Another pause. Then he wrote, "It's not what you think." I set the phone down. Because at that moment, it didn't matter what I thought. The break had already revealed everything it needed to. Ryan didn't want to lose me. But he didn't want to choose me either. And once you see that clearly, there's nothing left to negotiate. Across the room, Laura watched me quietly. "Well?" she asked. I picked up my phone again and typed one last message. "Enjoy the break, Ryan." Then I muted the conversation. Not blocked. Not dramatic. Just quiet. Because for the first time since this started, I realized the break wasn't testing our relationship. It was revealing it. And what it revealed was simple. Ryan hadn't stepped away to figure out if he loved me. He had stepped away to see if he had better options. The only mistake he made was assuming I would still be waiting when he finished looking.